You have to know what I'm about to show you if you want to make money from Facebook ads, no matter what business you are in. Most Facebook advertisers don't know this, and I don't want that to be you. I'm talking about a very specific metric called LTGP to CAC ratio. And that might sound quite complicated. A lot of business owners find this quite complicated, but I'm gonna show you exactly how to calculate it for your business. I'm gonna walk you through it step by step. You absolutely need to know what it is. You absolutely need to be working on improving it, because it's one of the most important things that's gonna determine the success of your business. It's gonna determine the success of your Facebook and Instagram ad campaigns. And I'm also gonna end the video by talking about ways that you can actually improve it. So make sure you stick around to that. Now, to make this as easy and straightforward as possible, easy to understand as possible, I've got a spreadsheet here, and we're gonna go through the entire process. Don't be intimidated by this. The maths we're gonna do is very, very straightforward. We're calculating this metric, right? LTGP to CAC ratio. There's two component parts. We'll break those down. We'll start with the LTGP first, which refers to lifetime gross profit. So what we're looking to calculate here is how much gross profit do we generate from each customer on average over their lifetime interactions with our business. And there are a number of different metrics that we need to input in order to reach this number. So the first one is average order value. And this can work if you're a product business, service business, whatever, by the way. Average order value. So how much on average do people usually pay to your business for your products and services in one go? Okay, so this could be average order value of, say, if someone's purchasing through a Shopify store, what's their average checkout value? Shopify will give you that number. Or if it's a service, how much does someone pay on average to your business? Is it $2,000 a month? Is it $500? Is it whatever? Now, sometimes when I ask business owners, what's your average order value, which I do all the time, one of the most important things that I need to know if I'm giving advice to a business, they will say, well, it really depends. Sometimes people spend a tiny amount, sometimes they spend lots. That's fine. That's why we're after an average, right? It doesn't matter if sometimes on your store someone checks out for $10 and someone checks out for $5,000. We're after an average, okay? So enter in your average. We're gonna give an example business here. Let's say that the average order value of this example business is $125. The next thing we need to work out is how many times on average does someone purchase from your business. Now, the reason why I've got average number of purchases / months in here is because if you're on a subscription type basis, you're a software business, you're a gym, you're a marketing agency that works on a retainer, the number of purchases is going to be how many months they stick around for, okay? Average number of purchases, let's say in this example, this business is doing quite a good job of reactivating existing customers, and the average person buys 6 times during their lifetime, okay? Then we simply multiply those two numbers together to get our lifetime revenue per customer, right? So we are just doing 125 times 6, which gives us a lifetime revenue per customer of $750. On average, the average customer that first purchased from our business will go on to spend $750 with us. Right, the next thing we need to calculate is our gross profit margin. So out of that 750, how much of that is cost of goods and direct costs? Now, with physical product businesses, this is often really easy to calculate because it's just going to be your cost of goods sold, right? It's going to be the cost from the manufacturer for the product. So let's assume that that's what we're operating with here, and we're operating with a 50% gross profit margin. Again, this is going to be an average. If you've got lots of different products and there are different margins, you're going to have to work out what the average is across the board. But let's assume it's a 50% gross profit margin. So that means that for every $100 that a customer spends with us, $50 of that is the direct cost, what's going to basically go to the manufacturer for the products that we are selling, okay? Now that gives us a lifetime gross profit. We just times these numbers together again. So we times that 750 by 50%, and that gives us 375. So our lifetime gross profit per customer on average for this example business is $375, a really, really important metric. Now, to calculate your gross profit margin, how much on average of each sale is going to direct costs for a service-based business is quite a bit more difficult. So I'm just going to quickly walk through that as an aside. We're going to carry on with this example as we go through this setup here, but I know there'll be service businesses watching this that'll need a walkthrough on that. Okay, so what we effectively need to do is proportion the costs, the salary costs of an employee to the revenue that is responsible for the clients that it's delivering for in the case of a service-based business, okay? So this might sound kind of complicated, but don't worry, it'll become very clear in just a second, right? So let's say that one employee costs us £3,000 per month. And again, this could be an average, right? Now the revenue per client that this employee is responsible for delivering for, they're providing the service for, let's say that's £2,000 per month, right? But that one employee can handle 6 clients, let's say, at any one time. So revenue per employee is going to be 6 times 2,000, 12,000. So basically that one employee that costs us £3,000 a month is responsible for delivering for clients that bring in £12,000 per month. So our cost of goods sold, or in this case really it's direct costs, but we can use that terminology because I think more people understand that, is simply the 3,000 divided by the 12,000, and we can change that to a percentage, which is 25%, right? So our cost of goods sold, or direct costs, is 25%. Now that means that our gross profit margin is the inverse of that, right? Because if we're only giving 25% of what we're bringing in to the employee, or that's the cost, then we're left with 75% as a business. So our gross profit margin is 75%. So if you just do 1 minus and then your cost of goods sold, you get 75%. So then for this service-based business, we would want to come up here and pop in 75% as the margin, and then we would go on and make our calculations. So if you're a service-based business and it's a little bit more difficult to work out your cost of goods sold and your direct costs to work out your gross profit, then just run this calculation down here as we did, and that's how you can calculate that number and carry on. We, however, are going to switch back to the first example for the rest of this process. So I'm going to change that back to 50% so all the numbers make sense, okay? So going back to this example now, we've got $375 lifetime gross profit per customer. That's a really, really important and good metric to know. Now, what a lot of businesses get this wrong is they look at lifetime revenue per customer, but that doesn't factor in margin. So we could have a couple of different businesses, let's say business A, business B. They both generate $750 per customer when it comes to lifetime revenue. But if business A has a 10% gross profit margin, that means that only $75 of that is gross profit. Whereas if business B has a 90% gross profit margin, then that means that $675 of that is gross profit. So when you're working out the viability of running campaigns, of generating customers, the profitability of your business, those two numbers, $75 gross profit versus $675 gross profit, is absolutely enormous, the difference there. And that's why you need to take the extra step, work out your average gross profit margin, and then work out lifetime gross profit per customer. Now, a lot of platforms like Shopify, for example, will calculate this lifetime gross profit figure for you, make it nice and straightforward. You just look at your dashboard and there it is, or you can do a little bit of digging and find it in analytics. But if you don't have that, or perhaps you're running on a platform like Shopify but doesn't have all the data, you've got some purchases coming in from elsewhere, you're going to need to calculate this manually. As we've just seen, it's not that difficult to do. It doesn't take that long, but it is one of the most important metrics to be aware of for the viability of your business, the profitability of your ad campaigns, and knowing what you can do going forward, and something you want to track because you want to improve it, as we're going to discuss later on in the video. Now, I do want to address that there'll be some people that won't have enough data to work this out accurately yet. If that's the case, then you're just going to need to estimate at this point. If it's wildly inaccurate, that's fine. It's better than nothing. You can then always amend this as time goes on. And this is a moving number anyway. So for example, if you've just started running ads, perhaps you do know what your average order value is, something we always want to try and improve, but perhaps you do know it, but you don't know how many times on average someone purchases from you over your lifetime because you've only running ads for a couple months. Fair enough. It might be 6, it might be 12, it might be 2. Again, that's something we're going to actively work on because we want to reactivate old customers and try and get them to buy again and again and again, because that increases the lifetime revenue, it increases the lifetime gross profit, which, as we now know, is really, really important. But I just wanted to quickly address that just guess for now, and once you start to get that data, you can always update it later on, and that's going to help you. When it comes to not knowing how many times on average a customer is going to purchase from you over their lifetime, you're probably going to underestimate if you're a relatively new business, and it's much better to do it that way round than overestimate. You're much better to go, oh, in 2 years' time, our business is much more profitable than we thought because we thought people would buy 3 times from us, and they actually buy 6. Happy days. We make twice as much money per customer as we thought we were going to do. Much better that way round than the other way round. So just wanted to quickly address that. Okay, now we need to talk about CAC, the other part of this, right? So cost to acquire a customer is what that stands for, and it's much, much easier to calculate, okay? So let's assume that you're already running ads. This is the maths we go through. So let's say in the last 30 days, I spent $5,000 on ad spend, and then we generated 100 new customers. Now, it's very important that we look at new customers here. We're not looking at, say, your total customer base and how many are now there after that month of advertising. No, we spent the 5,000 during this period. How many did we generate new during this period? Let's say it's 100. So then we very simply just divide our total ad spend by new customers acquired, and we get 50. So we're looking at $50 to acquire a new customer in this scenario. And you can do different timeframes on this. You could look at over a year. If you've got more data, absolutely add that in. Again, this is a metric that we're going to want to improve, and that's often what we're trying to do as Facebook and Instagram advertisers. We're trying to reduce our cost to acquire a customer. How can we get our cost per purchase, in this case, down from $50 to $40 to $30, et cetera, et cetera. But just make sure that those two numbers match up, right? So you're looking at the ad spend and the new customers acquired in the same time period. Okay, so now we need to put these two numbers together as a ratio, and I've added some more information to make it super, super clear, right? So our lifetime gross profit per customer is $375. We know that, we've calculated it. Our cost to acquire a customer is $50, okay? And then we just very simply, to calculate this as a ratio, is just LTGP divided by our cost to acquire a customer, which is going to come out at 7.5, or displayed as a ratio would be like this, right? It'd be 7.5 to 1. That's our LTGP to CAC ratio. Now, what that means is that for every dollar that we're spending on ads, we are generating $7.50 in gross profit, which is fantastic. That's a really, really good number. What we're aiming for when it comes to targets here is anything really above a 3. And you might be thinking, well, why not a 2? Why wouldn't 2 work? Surely $1 in, $2 back is great. That's because out of that gross profit, you've got to pay for everything else. You've got to pay for your overheads and your insurances and admin staff and all that sort of stuff. And those costs really, really increase as you scale a business. And this metric really wants to be as high as possible. I mean, we've worked with clients that operate with a 12 to 1, with a 20 to 1, one that even operated with a 60 to 1 LTGP to CAC ratio, which is absolutely fantastic. It means you're effectively printing money when you're running ad campaigns. Now, I'm going to show you how to improve your LTGP to CAC ratio in a second. Before I do, just want to quickly let you know about our done-for-you Facebook and Instagram advertising services. We can create, manage, and optimize your Facebook and Instagram ad campaigns for you, take that workload off your hand, hopefully help you get much better results, calculate all these sorts of things, and hopefully help improve those metrics so we can get your business heading in the right direction and scaling. If that's something you might be interested in, there is a link in the video description below. Go ahead and click on that, come through to a page on our website. You can book in a free call with one of my team members to find out more. Hopefully we get a chance to work together. Now, before we get into how to improve your LTGP to CAC ratio, I want to quickly note something, and that's that in this scenario, we're spending $1 to make $7.50 in gross profit, but we aren't receiving that straight away. So this ratio is different to return on ad spend. I can imagine people being like, why don't you just look on return on ad spend? Remember that $750 per customer of revenue you're generating, that's over 6 separate purchases. So if you're looking at acquiring the customer, that's going to show up as $50 cost in your ad account, but your first initial transaction is only for $125. So your average transaction, your average return on ad spend in that short term is going to be $50 out, $125 in, which is a 2.5 return on ad spend. So you might have made these calculations and think, why am I looking at a 7.5 LTGP to CAC ratio, but I'm only seeing a 2.5x ROAS within my ad account? The ROAS within your ad account doesn't take into account all those subsequent purchases. In this example, the average customer buys 6 times. You're only seeing that first one. You're not including those 5 other purchases. So really important to note there. Also important for you to think about this from a cash flow standpoint. And whilst this example is cash flow positive on that first transaction, you can have a very profitable business that isn't cash flow positive on the first transaction. You might lose a bit of money on that first purchase. And what I mean by that is it costs more for you to acquire a customer than you bring in, particularly when you factor in your cost of goods sold and your margin. But that's okay if you can get that person to buy again and again and again, because you will more than make up for it and then some over their lifetime. The best example of this has to be McDonald's, right? So McDonald's spends a lot on advertising and marketing. We see their ads all the time. They are not making a profit when someone sees an ad and goes into store and purchases on that first transaction. No way. It costs far too much to advertise to reach enough people to get them to take action, and the average order value is not high enough for that. But what they are hoping is that you will like the product and you will come back and buy it again and again and again. And McDonald's in their training are famous for telling their new staff members that a McDonald's customer is worth $50,000. Because they've calculated that that's what they're worth over their lifetime. Obviously, no one goes to McDonald's to spend $50,000, but if you go every week or a couple of times a week for your entire life, for 50 years, that's what you'd be worth, right? On average. So they were saying that to their staff to try and get them to treat every customer as they're a really important person, take good care of them, they're actually worth this to the business. But that's just a really good example of a business that will absolutely be loss-making on that front end. Their ROAS, and then it wouldn't be tracking it in this way, I'm sure, but their ROAS would be negative initially, but a very successful, very profitable business because they get someone to come back again and again. Okay, so with that said, how do you actually improve your LTGP to CAC ratio? Now, obviously better ad campaigns and better ads will help because that will reduce your CAC, your cost to acquire a customer. If you can get that $50 cost per purchase down to $40, down to $30, great, that's going to help improve that ratio. That's going to make your business more profitable, more scalable, more viable. Your ad campaigns will return a better amount. But often it is a lot easier to increase your LTGP, your lifetime gross profit, because realistically, there's only so low that cost to acquire a customer can go. There are other businesses competing on the platform that are bidding up the costs. There really is a floor on that. But in terms of increasing your lifetime gross profit per customer, it can go from where it is right now to 10x, maybe 100x where it is. You really have much more room for maneuver and much more of a chance of massively improving that metric than you do of massively decreasing your cost to acquire a customer. So then, how do you actually increase your LTGP? Well, the first thing is that you get customers to stay for longer if you're on like a recurring or subscription basis, or you get them to buy again more often. How do you do that? Make sure that your product and service is as good as it can possibly be. So tech companies, really large tech companies, for example, they are obsessed with churn. Churn is the amount of customers that they're losing each month or each year, and they want to reduce that as much as possible because they know that if they can take their churn from a 4% to a 2%, then customers stay twice as long, they are twice as valuable, they can afford to pay twice as much to acquire them in the first place, and their business is at least twice as valuable. In reality, a lot more valuable because that's a much better business, but you get the point here. They're obsessed with reducing churn because it means customers stay longer and it increases their LTGP. Another thing you can do is increase price. Now, realistically, to increase price, you're going to have to deliver more value. If you just went and whacked up your prices without delivering any more value, then you're not going to acquire as many customers. Your CAC is going to increase, which obviously wouldn't help the ratio. We don't want to do that. But you can increase your lifetime gross profit by customer by charging twice as much and delivering twice as much value. And one of the good things for a lot of businesses when you really think about it is that it probably won't cost you twice as much to deliver twice as much value. So let's say you take a service. You could probably cost you an extra 10, 20, maybe 30% in staff costs, time, etc., whatever it is you're looking to do, but deliver twice as much value and be able to charge twice as much. You can often do the same with a product-based business. Are there bundles? Are there cross-sells? Are there upsells? Are there extra things that you could add in that will allow you to charge a lot more without necessarily it costing you a huge amount? So you always need to be thinking as a business owner, not just about how to reduce your cost to acquire a customer on your ad campaigns, but how do we make more from each customer? How do we deliver more value? How do we keep them longer? How do we get a better product and customer experience? And another major component to increasing your LTGP is putting more effort into reactivating customers, getting them to buy again. Because remember, how many times someone buys from you is a huge part of your LTGP and increasing it. So if the average person currently buys from you twice, and you can improve a number of things and get much better at customer reactivation and convince them to buy 6 times over their lifetime, well, you've just tripled your LTGP to CAC ratio without doing anything to your ads. And that's a huge win for your business. So think about email marketing, think about SMS marketing, retargeting, referrals. Think about how can we have touch points with our existing customers, people who have bought from us previously, to get them to buy again. Can you include discount offers in the packaging when you send people so they're more likely to come back and purchase? Really put a lot of time and effort into that. The more time you can get people to buy, think about McDonald's, the more valuable that customer is to your business over the lifetime, and the more actually you can afford to spend on your ad campaigns, and you can increase your cost to acquire a customer happily if your LTGP has gone up enough to warrant that. And that's actually one of the things that the businesses that have the most success with Facebook and Instagram ads really focus on, is getting that LTGP up. They're not worried, they're not stressing out about, can I reduce my cost per purchase on Facebook ads by $1 here or $1 there? They're going, no, how can we stick $50, $100, $1,000 onto our LTGP so that it doesn't matter? And it doesn't matter if we scale and our cost to acquire a customer goes up 10%. Fine, who cares? We're generating 5 times as much on the back back end as our competitors are. We can easily afford to pay this. What happens if in a year's time or 2 years' time, the cost of ads goes up by 10, 20%?
Everybody stay calm. What's the procedure, everyone? What's the procedure?
Doesn't matter. Our LTGP is so high that it will cover it and then some, and we've got lots over to pay for all the other costs, and we've got lots over to pay ourselves as business owners, healthy profits and things along those lines. So if there's any message that I can get through to you about this video, and I'm sorry if it's a bit repetitive, it's that obsess over your LTGP, and if you do, I think your business will be in a much, much better place. Now, provided your LTGP to CAC ratio is above a 3-to-1, or you can improve it, work on it, and get it above a 3-to-1, you're going to want to scale. If that's the case, I'd strongly recommend you check out this video here. In it, I show you a different and easier way to scale Facebook and Instagram ad campaigns. I think you're gonna find it very interesting. Go ahead and check it out.